There's a little bit of yang energy in the yin and a little bit of yin energy in the yang. And so it reminds us to be cautious in trying to categorize things. It's hard for us in the West because we have this long-standing tradition of categorization. It's called taxonomy. That stems back to Aristotle in ancient Greece, this system of ordering and classifying, and it has its role. It helps us understand. Specimens in science, for example. But the danger comes in trying to classify in an absolute way, as if a thing could completely and wholly fit into one box. Can anything be completely one way? Can anything have one absolute identity? This is not a study of identity. This is a study of relationships. That resonates with what we were saying yesterday about Confucius. For Confucius, he was really concerned about the relationships between people. And here, likewise, it's a study of the relationships between energies and how to find that balance. It's not about assigning an identity. It's about understanding the yin and the yang as parts of a relationship, parts of an interconnected whole. It's like what we were saying about identity in the Buddhist context. I'm not just a teacher. I'm a mother, a daughter, and you can all say similar things. You're a student, you're a brother. We're not completely one thing. You might be an athlete, but you're not wholly an athlete. They say, oh, well, he has a feminine side too. Well, of course. This is what the yin and the yang teaches us. You can make it very tangible to the things that they talk about. We call that self-help in the West. They're mutually dependent. Mutually dependent. They depend on one another. And so, if you were going to define it, you could say it's a model of this universal energy. It's a model, or better, a model of the flow of energy. A model of the flow of energy. And guess what? That is the Tao. The Tao, that thing that Lao Tzu says can't be explained and defined and completely understood, yet we find our harmony with it. And so it's best just to convey this aspect of the dynamic play of energies through a symbol. That thing we might call the Tao. That flow of energy in the universe. The flow of energy in the universe that we're all part of. Remember, go back to those holisms we talked about the first week of class. If Confucius is looking for social harmony, social holism, what is Daoism focused on? What kind of holism? Natural. Natural. That is to say, finding our harmony and our balance within the sphere of nature, because we are part of nature, not separate from it. We're part of the system of energy. And so he thought it would be wise to look at nature and find out how we can model our own behavior on its easy and natural flow, on its cycles, recognize those cycles, and allow ourselves to move with those cycles, rather than going against. That brings us into our next term, Wu Wei, which I'll put on the board in a minute, because I still have more things to say about the yin-yang, about the Tai Chi too.
I was just thinking about
Your assignment is based on Wu Wei. That's really the anchoring point of the Taoist philosophical teachings. A lot of people don't realize that this ancient symbol is telling in more ways than one. It's even used historically as a representation of the weather cycle, or at least the cycles of seasons within the context of the year. So for example, we named the white half Yang, which literally just means the sunny side of the hill, the bright, the energetic, the active force. It's likened to the sun in that it gives energy. It's hot, it's active. Okay?
There's no Batman.
If yang is associated with sun, with the sun force, it's the sunny side of the hill after all, and you were to liken it to a certain, actually we can boil it down to one day out of the year when we have the most amount of yang, what day would that be? The summer solstice. That's the right answer. And so guess what? This point, because here you have the maximum yang force, the maximum amount of yang, which corresponds with that day in the year when we have the maximum amount of sun. Okay? So we can name a date here. Let's say June 21st. Here. June 21st. That's the actual solstice. Because what happens on June 21st? The day is, at least in the northern hemisphere, as long as it's going to be. It's not going to be any longer than that. We won't have any more sun than that for the rest of the year until the next June 21st. The sun is as close as it's going to be. If you're studying meteorology or if you've taken meteorology, you know that on that day, the sun is directly over the Tropic of Cancer, 23.5 degrees north latitude. Here in LA, we're at about 34. So it's still not directly overhead, but it's pretty close. It's pretty close. So wear your sunscreen. Yeah. But that's the point. You can say it's a yang day, you know. And if that's true for this portion of the diagram, well, what can we say about this portion of the diagram when we have a highly concentrated amount of yin, the most amount of yin we'll have for the whole year? What date could we associate with that? December 22nd, right. Which is the winter solstice, which is when the sun will be directly over the Tropic of Capricorn in the southern hemisphere, 23.5 degrees south latitude. So it's way on the other side of the equator. The sun is far away, so the days are short. The days are short. We have a lot of darkness. But it's interesting. Look at the direction of what we'll call the fish. Look at the direction. It's moving dynamically. And as soon as we reach the maximum amount of yin, it almost spawns the quote-unquote opposite kind of energy, the opposite force. It's almost as if yang is born from yin, right? Because what happens the very next day after December 22nd? The very next day, the days are already longer. You don't feel it yet. It's like in your identity chart. You don't see yourself changing. You see it only in retrospect after the passage of time. You don't notice that the day is already a minute longer. Of course not. That's why when you see your grandma after 10 years and she says, oh, look how big you've gotten, she notices because of the space, the time in between visits. So after time, you know, once we get into February, March, you think, wow, did you notice that? It's like sunny past 6 o'clock now. You don't notice it at first. But yin gives rise to yang. We can put it like that. Yin gives rise to yang, spawns yang. Yang is born from yin. And likewise, after the longest day of the year, after this explosion of yang force, the days already start getting shorter. So during August, the days are getting shorter and shorter. We have more yin.